Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, where we will be talking about boosting your QA/QC workflows. Before we begin, we'd just like to remind everybody that your line is muted to reduce the background noise. If you have a question, you can use the question box. Feel free to enter your question at any time during the webinar. We will be responding to those questions at the end of the webinar. If you miss a piece or if you want to share this webinar, you can, recorded session will be sent to all registrants. So today, first, my name is Lori Spittler. I am a construction industry manager. I will be giving the introduction. I will then hand it over to Jared Krug, who's the construction customer success manager for the technical demo. And finally, Shireen Arnold is gracing us with her presence today and will be responding to questions at the very end of the webinar. So let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about why to build a digital quality control program. And I always really think quality control is interesting. And I'm going to give a US-based example, but I think this is broadly applicable. Quality control in construction is an interesting thing because it's very important, but it's actually quite poorly defined. Unlike safety in the US, where we have a very standard definition of safety by OSHA, we have a way to measure it with the EMR, the experience modification rate. So in safety, we're all very clear on the standards. We're all very clear on what we need to do to meet the standards, what sort of documentation we need to provide to OSHA if they show up to our site, and how to measure what success in safety looks like. With quality, it tends to be a little different. There is no universal understanding of what quality means. We do have references in the specifications. We can look in our manuals. We can understand what the definition of quality is for a job, but it's generally administered by people and measured by people. In this way, it's sort of easy to let quality programs slip because there's no standard way of measuring it. But what really is important about quality is to recognize how it affects project outcomes and really build that system within your company. So the advantage and the opportunity we have there is you can build a quality system that really fits your company and really works towards your specific needs. So why would we do that? And I like to give the example of building a wall, right? You can ask a subcontractor to build a wall. You can have them build it in a particular location. But really, who really cares about that quality of the wall? Who really bears the effect of what happens with that wall down the line of the project? It's the general contractor. So if the drywall guy goes out and builds the wall and maybe puts it in slightly the wrong location or maybe rocks it up before they get everything in the wall, you can make them take down that wall and move it. Or you can make them take down that wall and fix the MEP inside. You can even address the secondary effects and make them pay for that electrician to come in and rewire. But what you can't do is really control the tertiary or other effects of that wall being in the wrong location. You never make up that time. You never make up that inefficiency of the crew moving around. And so what you're doing is you're incrementally losing time because you did not monitor that quality as the project was going on. And then you see the effects of that in the end of the project as you're stacking and packing your trades. You're trying to get everybody in. You're trying to finish the building on time. You're paying all the overtime. You're losing the quality at the end of your project and not installing the quality of finishes that you need for the job. And that example right there, I think, really illustrates why quality control programs and proactive quality control programs are important at a company level, and they're important to dictate project outcomes. So we'd like to focus today about how to start and manage proactive quality programs. So the key to proactive quality programs is first to create standard and repeatable processes. So this is really centralizing the information, making sure that your folks in the field and your engineers and your superintendents have access to digital checklists. They understand you're monitoring how they perform those digital checklists and the frequency with which they're performing the digital checklists. And you're centralizing all of the information from the checklist and from the issues created out of the checklist. The next step, and this is really important, is quantitatively understanding how you're measuring quality on the job. So you do proactive checklists to measure what is going right as well as what is going wrong. If you just do issue management, you're just going to be tracking where issues are. If you do checklists proactively, you're going to be measuring how your subcontractors and how the different areas you're building are performing, so you can understand if one wing is lagging behind another in terms of quality. You can track and manage different subcontractors if one subcontractor is lagging behind another in quality. And you can set leading indicators, not lagging. So you're not tracking issues, you're tracking failed inspections that need to go back and rework, and you can address that proactively. And finally, with the reporting, the centralized data, the pulling summary and detailed reports, and really digging into that root causes so you can start fixing the root causes of your quality and improve your outcomes going forward. So that's the summary of what we're going to be doing today. At this point, I'd like to hand it over to Jared, and Jared will be providing you the technical demo.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Lori. Just for the admins, can you guys see my screen? Make sure I'm good.
You're good. You're good.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again, Lori. Again, it's Jared Krug. I'm on the construction customer success team, and we'll be walking you through a workflow. And basically, what I'll do when we get into the workflow is spend a couple minutes in the actual web application. We're going to spend some time in the admin functionality just to set it up, and then we're going to jump into the iPad and talk a little bit about what this would look like out on site. Before we kind of get into the meat of the demo, I want to actually present this for you guys. And this is a way just to kind of level set. And really, when we talk about the next generation of BIM 360, I like to show this just because it helps articulate a little bit about where things fit. So just to level set, today we're talking about the field management service, which as a package sits in BIM 360 Build. So if you do have BIM 360 Build, you have field management as well as project management, okay? Now, also within this, you're required to also have the BIM 360 data management layer. So that basically gives you access to all the data, all the documents, models, drawings, everything that would actually supplant a lot of the processes that actually occur down in the field throughout in the build package. So again, field management sits in the build package as well as project management, but today we're going to be focusing really on this layer right here. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the application. So the use case today is really a field verification for embed alignment. So nothing too fancy, but we're actually going to be going out, pretending like we're going out, just verifying the location of our embeds. We've got some stair core with embeds that we need to actually verify on site. So we've kind of set up that kind of process inside the application today. So we're going to start off, as I said, in the web application in the administration side. Now, just to be very clear, when you're in BIM 360, obviously we have a very consistent top banner that really allows you to navigate across all the services. And we can migrate between the different services that you have access to as a user with these little icons here. So there's the document management layer that I discussed earlier, the field management layer, and then the project management layer that are all part of the build service or the build package. We're going to be spending time in the project administration first, and specifically in the field management project administration. We're going to do some setup here just so we can bring in a user and allow that user access to the checklist as well as the issues that we're going to be creating from this process. But first things first, it's very important to develop, and a lot of people forget this step, is to actually create the location structure. Obviously, when we're on site, we'll be referencing issues that are very specific to the location. So you want to make sure that we have that defined. Now that's a project-wide setting. So once that's set, it really exists for all of the services in BIM 360, not only the document management side, the field management, as well as the project management side. So it's something that needs to be set up kind of out of the gate. I just have a very basic location structure here that we were referencing, nothing too fancy. It can be set up as you need it based on the nuances on the job site. So I have just a very specific kind of hierarchy of locations here that involve a lot of the common area, office, and other areas in the project. Okay, so once that's set up, I'm gonna go back into the field management layer here, and just to verify, we've got a couple of tabs that we're going to be working within. The first is the permissions. Now, obviously, when we're dealing with different users that are administrating checklists, assigning checklists, actually completing checklists for your field crews, as well as assigning and then responding to issues, we have a lot going on relative to the users that need to have access for very specific functions. So we'll be setting that up just very quickly here. So the first things first, I'm going to add a new user to the environment in the specific service. So Shireen Arnold, who's on the call, will be adding Shireen here. Now you'll see that when Shireen comes in, she has the basic levels of access. And just so we can review that, there's a handy little key that kind of shows what these levels do. So basic means that you can view and edit items that are assigned to you as a user, right? And then kind of, from that, we kind of go into more in-depth control all the way to full control. So depending on what you want that user to do, you as a project admin can basically set that up. So in this case, very specifically know that Shireen is going to be answering our issue. So we're going to come in and just give her, we're going to go ahead and give her view and create. For our checklist, that'll be assigned to me. We won't change that, just basic permission structures for both the templates as well as the checklist for Shireen. Okay, so once that's set up, obviously you can go through your project and set up based on the folks will be in the project. And once that's set up, those users can log in and they'll be able to see and interact with all the nuances that you've been created from this point forward. The next thing we want to do is kind of walk through the issue types. And let this generate here. So we have standard issue types that come with the service kind of out of the box, but you can add your own issue types, your own custom issue types as you see fit. We have standard commissioning, quality, safety, punch out of the gate, and you can add, as I said before, you can add those. We'll go into the quality here, and then within that, you can have different types, so subtypes of that category, right? So the category of quality, we have non-conforming, we have a punch list, just a straight up quality, and then a work to complete subtype for that specific issue type. Okay, so you would go through and obviously create that based on the type of interactions we're having on the project. Now, the other thing we're going to be doing is actually taking a look at the issue attributes. Now, the cool thing about what we're doing is allowing you to the flexibility to have all the different issue types, but also attach different attributes to specific issue types. So in the case here, our demonstration for these embeds, we may want to define, just for our field crews and our foremen, we may have a layout crew that actually needs to understand what the specific layout point number that defines the center of that embed location. So that's going to be an issue attribute that will be collected on site on the iPad that's basically attached to this issue type of quality. And the way that works is when you're in a specific bucket here for the actual subtype, you would then merge that, or actually attach, if you will, that specific issue attribute to this subtype. Okay, and that's a pretty easy process. You just come in here and add that attribute. If you have a list of attributes, you can just define those and click, and then add it to that specific subtype. Okay, so once we've done that, we're kind of through really our rudimentary setup. A lot of the back-end pieces have already been established, so we can go ahead and get into the actual service itself. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to go up here to my 9 little buttons, and we're going to jump out of project administration into the field management service itself. Now, at the high level, you can see we have templates, checklists, issues, and daily logs. We won't be spending time today on the daily logs, but we will walk through the templates, the checklists, and the issues pieces. And to start off, we'll jump right into the template section. So obviously, if you're quality program, and part of that is a punch list or a checklist or even a safety program, you may need to have the checklists that come out of those programs. The good thing about this environment is we can actually create new templates just in the environment itself. We have a user interface that allows you to easily create those checklists on the fly, and I'll actually show you what that looks like. But we can also come in and import. Those of you who are coming from Classic Field, there's a very easy process to export out of BIM 360 field, the classic, and import that straight into here. There's, for the most part, all the data comes through. There may be a slight modifications based on some of the text that comes through, at least the headers. But I've done this numerous times, and it always comes in perfectly. It's actually it's a very nice process. So if you're not using classic field and you just want to create, you have your own Excel based spreadsheet, or you want to use Excel to basically fortify this process, you can do that and just import. So if I click through here, you'll see that we have a sample, a structured template that you have to basically merge your data into. And once it's merged into that template, then all you have to do is upload it and then bring it into the environment. So once you do that, and this is an example of me creating it kind of organically, you end up having your specific checklist right here, the template. So we'll click into that. So again, I've already created this. Let's go ahead and go into the edit mode. You'll see this little icon up here for the draw icon, just to go back and edit this. So this is what the interface looks like if you're creating a template. Now, again, I think it's super simple to come in and do this, and there's a couple of things that you want to make sure that you're doing, right? So number one, you can add sections, as many sections as you need to, and then you can bring the content into each of those sections. You can reorder those sections as you need to. You can reorder any of the actual questions that are within those sections if you needed to. Very fluid environment when you're doing this on the web. Now, so a couple things. Number one, when we're creating our checklists, we have the ability to add straight up text, which this is. So the user and the operator would be on their iPad, which we'll get to see just a straight up text input. We could also make that a multiple choice. We could also make that a checkbox, or we could add a numeric value that would be entered in that spot. For our non-conformity items, you can see down here, when we get into this area, we have yes, no, NA, true, false, pass, fail, or plus and minus. Pretty standard when we get into this, but again, when we're collecting all of the non-conformities, whether they're in either one of these four formats, we're automatically going to be generating an issue based on that non-conformity. So that's an automated feature that's in the environment that allow you to just straight jump into an issue. So we'll show what that looks like from the iPad. All right. The other thing I want to show you is we're able to add different attachments. So, from this specific example, we're sending our operator out on site. We want to give them reference. So I've basically reached into BIM 360 docs, and I've added attachments to fortify that process to give our field operator as much information as they need. You can see here, we've got a PDF, and I'll show what this looks like on the iPad. I've actually brought in an NWD. So I created an NWD with the default view set that points specifically to this embed location in 3D. When we get on the iPad, you'll see how valuable it is to actually go right into that 3D model just to get spatial relevance when we're out on site. And then I also have just a straight up picture from the opposite stair core to give that operator just some idea what they should be looking at. Okay. So once we've completed our template process, and I see this as a back office a process that you'd actually have somebody in your office that would be creating these per project and having them then assigned from there. Cancel out of this. So once you've created that template, now it's ready to be assigned, right? You can see here on the right, I've got this create checklist. So again, we've created the template. Now we're actually going to assign this checklist to somebody in our field. So I'm actually going to assign this to myself just to make it easy. So I can search on that person, and there I am. Here's my location structure, right? So again, very important to have that up front. If you get to this point, you haven't done your location structure, you'll have to go back and do that. And obviously, we need to have that location structure to give our operators exact relevance. So this is going to be in our office area. We're going to give this a due date. We're gracious and give them to Halloween to get this done. So we're done, right? I think the one thing that when I'm in this environment, I'm always looking for that click button to assign, but we're using dynamic scripting here. So automatically when you enter that information, it's really already been assigned to the user right here. Now, again, we have a couple options. One, this has already been assigned and is now waiting for us, for that user, on the iPad. Or we could, if we are actually in a field process of using a notepad to basically collect this information, we could actually bring the completed quote unquote checklist from a notepad, and we could come back in the office and we can actually complete this here. So we have the ability to actually do the checklist in the web as well as the iPad. Okay. So we're going to jump now, since this has been assigned to me, we're going to jump to the iPad. So bear with me. Fancy dancy right here on my iPad. So this is my iPad, just to, you can all see this is the BIM 360 iOS app on my iPad. And at the bottom row, you can see really all of the top tier kind of functionality within the app itself. So our document layer right here, we have all of our documents that are part of the project that I have been assigned or exposure to. The checklists, and we'll get into the checklist that's just been assigned. The issues, these are field issues, as well as potential issues that come out of a design review process. All the downloads, so we can actually then go through and permanently place the file, certain files or folders on our iPad, so we can go offline and be able to view those documents. And as we said, we have the daily logs and then also RFIs that are part of our project management service, which we're not talking about today. Okay, so let's actually get into that specific checklist that we assigned. I'm going to clear my filter. And you see that the bottom there, that's not started. So as we said, that's due tomorrow on Halloween. And I've got the not started. So if I wanted to clear the clutter on my iPad and just get to really the status of not started, I can get those completeds out of the way so I don't see those. Just kind of clear up my interface. And we can do that by using the filters down there at the bottom. So the cool thing is I talked about being able to really administer from the web, right? Create that template, then assign the checklist from the web. But we can actually bring in that information from a template straight to the iPad. We don't have to go through the process of assigning it from the web. If you see up in the top corner here in this dialog box, there's a plus sign. So if we click that, we basically are selecting the template that we saw on the web. So I could, on my iPad, basically create a checklist and assign it from that template that was created on the web, right? So we have the option to do that just autonomously. If we need to go out and do a spur of the moment quality check or safety walk, we can do that on the iPad. As long as we're connected, we can ping that service, bring down that template, and then create the checklist on the fly. All right, so let's go actually into that checklist. So there we go. So again, we have the ability to look at that in its entirety, right? So there's all the information. Now, if I had multiple sections, I could squeeze down those sections. You see this little, you see this little box up here. So I had multiple sections in this that were assigned sections. I could squeeze those down and only review sections. The other thing that we could do, which isn't part of this template because it's a very small checklist, we could assign specific sections to specific individuals. So in that setup process, when you have a template, those individual sections, if they have them, those could be assigned to different folks on the project. All right, so you could have maybe a potential by floor, by location structure based on the different checklists, and you could go through that process by assigning individuals based on that location. Okay, so let's actually go into the attachments that I talked about, just so you can see those. As I mentioned, we have that NWD. So again, I think the relevance here is I'm out on site. I'm getting ready to do this process, but I need some relevance just to understand what's been designed to what's actually being installed or what's installed on a job site. So as I mentioned, I brought in that NWD and I reached into BIM 360 docs and that template, and I basically permanently attached it as part of this checklist. You can see here, there's those embeds. So I do get spatial relevance here just to see what that looks like. So that's a nice way just to bring in some detail that I normally wouldn't have access to, okay? You see at the bottom, I can measure these, right? So I could come in and do a measurement just to have that part of the process here. And I actually have done that on my shop drawing. So if I go to my level 1 PDF, again, as part of this template, I fortified this from docs, and I added a markup that's now attached to this for the operator to see. So I've got my measurements here. already part of the center of those embeds, already measured out there. So we give that operator exact dimensional measure for their field verification. And then last but not least, just an image, just to give just some relevance there for the opposite stair core. Okay, so let's go ahead and just fill out this checklist like we would be in the field. So the embed number is 001A. Okay, I could also, if I needed to, grab a photo. So let's just do that. So we've got a photo down here. I could mark up this photo as needed. So I could come in here. Okay, and then I could actually attach that to the checklist, right? So we just go through our questions here. Has the embed been installed? Yes, it has. Is the embed correct size for the submittal? Yes, it is. And if we are using a total station for verification within this process, we are, but certainly we don't have to. We're actually just doing field verification using tape. We could do that. In this case, we are using a total station for verification. So yes, we did. However, we did find a problem, right? So this last question, unfortunately, we verified it. The center of that embed is not actually as specified. So we're going to have a non-conformity here. We're going to collect a no. And you just see, as soon as I did that, as I mentioned earlier, we are now driving the issue. So we're in the issue dialog box for the operator then to actually collect the information, that deviation, whatever that is, and then we can assign it for resolution. So you can see here in the the dialog box, we see all the details. We see the subtype of quality at the top, the status of open, and we can add a description here as well to give more detail. So we're going to add verified and off center 1.5 inches. We're going to assign that. In this case, as you remember, we were going to assign it to Shireen. There we go, Shireen. Shireen, we're going to give you till tomorrow to take a look at that. And as well, we're going to define the root cause. Okay, so we have stock root causes that are in the environment, a fairly healthy list of root causes. So we're going to come down here, we're going to say workmanship at the bottom, but we could certainly select all of these. And these are important. We start looking at reports, being able to see this information kind of across the project. We get to see certain things that are popping up endemically on our project. You see the last number that I want to pause here just a quick second. Last detail, the layout point number. Again, as we're using this process, using a total station for verification, you remember when I added that custom attribute as part of my sub detail with that issue type, I had that layout point number. So basically, when I select the specific subtype of quality, I automatically get access to that value, right? So that layout point number then becomes a permanent part and connected to that subtype. So we're able to add more detail about this issue to provide relevance and potential help on the back end. So we know that 997.1 dash A. Oops, I'm having a problem there. Sorry. There we go. So layout point number is 997. Again, if we needed to, we could actually collect a photo, kind of back to our photos again, and we can have additional detail in photo as part of that specific issue. Okay, so we're ready to actually push this issue to then Shireen. Now, once we do this, it actually goes out of our hands and it gets sent to Shireen in an email, right? So Shireen, if she's on her iPad, she could take a look at that and take the next steps to answer that. She could be on the web, but she will get an email that will actually let her know that that's been assigned, okay? We go into the issue dialog box here on our iPad, we can look at that. So we go into our field issues tab, right? And you can see there that that is, there is Shireen right there. There we go, 997. So there's the detail that we collected from that issue. So we're just waiting on Shireen to respond, okay? Now, obviously when Shireen responds, we'll be able to then take the next step based on her answer. Those could be, right? We could actually then take it and say, it's not approved, or she could, right, have it not approved. It could be in dispute, right? We could have a process of reviewing that back and forth with each other that goes through these various steps, right? At the very end of that, we could come in and actually close that issue, right? So let's say that we get all the answers that we needed to. We actually have folks on site to go out and verify that and make the adjustments with that embed, and we can actually then formally close that issue, right? So now it's part of a closed process. We've answered that, and we'll take the next steps and whatever we need to do. All right, so we've got kind of a closed loop process there, obviously going through just to review. We spent time on the web. We created a template, obviously based on some parameters in our setup to actually assign specific users. We add the location structure. We were able then to obviously go in and add the subtypes with that custom attribute that gives us more detail when we assign that. We were able to then assign that specific checklist to the individual on the iPad, or we could actually have done that on the web. That operator actually completed that checklist, as we just saw there. And in the process, you saw that nonconformity, we just created an issue. And in the process, we also then pushed that issue to somebody else, potentially in our back office, or maybe it was a field foreman that actually took a look at that to answer that question for us. And as the issuer, then I can create, or I can actually close that specific issue as needed. All right. So we kind of got our closed loop process. Now, one of the also things I want to talk about just briefly is, well, how do we measure and monitor this? We've got a couple of ways that we can actually take a look at across the project in this specific service, some reports that we have. I'm going to go ahead and bring these over. So we've got 3 specific reports, and these reports are created in the service itself, and they are emailed to you in PDF form, right? The one thing I love about these reports, not only are they in PDF, so this first one is the embed alignment checklist report. So it comes straight from that specific checklist. So we get all the details of that checklist in this format, okay? So the cool thing is these are hot linked. So if I needed to jump back in just from this PDF, I could click here and go right back into the project, specifically where we needed to go, right? This issue is going to be brought up on our screen. So we're able to deep link, obviously, right from that PDF into that specific issue. And that's super cool when you're able to just to be able to go from an offline mode from a PDF straight back into this issue. Okay. So that's that report. We also have a field checklist report. So this is actually at the high level. So across the entire project, and I'll show you what that looks. So we go to all of our checklists. We can see this report and generate basically what you're seeing on the screen. We could also filter this, right? So we could apply filters and then have that come back to us in a report. And again, we have deep links straight from each of these checklists that go back into the service. We can see that. All right. The last report is the issue report. Now, again, we're able to then, based on kind of across the project, we're able to push all those reports specifically in PDF. And this is a super nice way, again, not only to jump in specifically to maybe a person on the project or even a specific issue. We're able to do that right from this PDF. Okay, so it's a super handy way to interact with the service without actually being in the service, but also getting all the information you need to make changes. You know, maybe you need to go back on project and make some changes back that need to be in the environment. So again, really nice way to do this. 3 reports that you can get out of the environment. The last thing I want to show you, we'll get back to Shereen for questions, is the project home. So we're going to jump out of the field management service. We're going to spend a bit of time just real quick just on project home. And you want to think of this really as kind of your bookmark homepage for the project. There are really nice things that are incorporated into this just from an overall perspective and view that you're able to jump into specific aspects of your project. One of those obviously being, if you look here, some of the issues that we created. Now, depending on the services that you have access to, this could change. So if you as a company don't have the design collaboration service, maybe you don't have the build service, you just have docs, it would depend on that, right? In this case, I do have all those, so I'm going to get to see a lot more. But I also have, in this case, my field issues that we've created. So You can see here number 11, number 8 are embed specific ones that were created, right? And we can then jump right into those, and again, deep link into that specific issue right from this project home. Checklists, again, we have kind of a summary of the checklist for the project. We can go straight into here. You can see that was just pushed out today for tomorrow for resolution. We go straight into that checklist, right? So you can see the completion status there with my image. And that's what was collected, if you remember, on the iPad. So project homes are just a super nice way to have a very quick look into your project at a glance. We can come in and customize what we do get to see. We can hide certain things if we didn't show the weather. Maybe we don't want to show the document issues. We want to keep the field issues kind of in our purview. We have ways to do that here from this specific screen. Okay. Last thing I want to show you, and this is the last thing, is the Insight. So Insight is basically a project-wide analytics engine. It basically scrapes the data from the interactions from all the services, whether that be the project management service, the field management service, interactions on docs and versions of drawings and sheets, and it kind of puts it into this specific view. Now, for our kind of our view into this world of this embed verification, we're obviously looking at a quality and the quality defects that we find on projects, right? In this case, we can see here just a snapshot of what's going on in our project across this timeline. And we get to see our list of root causes. You remember, we're able to define those root causes at the point of interaction on the issue creation. And we get to see some repeat offenders based on kind of a timeline here. Also, issues that we get to look at, active versus closed. And the last one is our quality conformance checklist, right? You can see across the time from May to November, we get to see the kind of the non-conforming items against the total conforming items that have passed across all of our checklists. So it's a really nice way just to get again, specific to our quality program. In this case, obviously, we're doing this embedded verification goes kind of in that bucket, allows us to basically then interrogate the environment to see certain things that are bubbling up across our project. Okay. I think I have time. We have time for questions. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. We definitely have time. I'll hand it off to Shireen. Hopefully you guys have been gathering questions. Then we can jump in and answer. I'll put it back to you, Shireen, and Jessica, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. So I'm going to keep it on your screen though. So we have a project up just for reference.
Sure.
The first question is actually going back to the issue that you created with Shireen. Is there a log that's kept of the responses to those? Maybe you could show it, open it up, and see Shireen's response before you close that.
Sure. And I apologize. I didn't probably give due time for Shireen to respond. So, so they're talking about just the actual issue detail that comes out of this. Okay.
The activity that's happening within that issue.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't give Shireen. There she goes. So Shireen did probably before I closed it in that quick timeline, got in and actually added comments. So again, just to kind of rewind so we all know where this is, just to pause back out. So this is I'm in the issues area of field management, and I get based on the filter that I apply. And again, I could apply all kinds of filters here to hide or expose certain issues. And I can click into each one of these. So in this case, this is the embed verification one. It brings up this dialog box. And then per Jessica's mentioned, I go into the activity kind of thread here to see Shireen's response as well as my interaction, and that's this timeline. So that's a nice way just to get a visual verification of the interactions and kind of all the threaded discussion that went against that specific issue. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to turn things over, some questions for Shireen. So we see that we're introducing field issues in this workflow. There are also docs issues. How are these different, and how should we be using them?
That's a great question. So we are literally just in the process of unifying our issue management within BIM 360 platform. So what you will find is all of the functionality that is available today within field management as showcased today in regards to the customization of issue types, customization of attributes will be available for docs issues as well. One thing to note, though, is there will no longer be a differentiation from docs and field issues. The way in which we will separate these out will be purely based upon type. So we will introduce a new type called design type. And with this, it's for those more, let's say, simpler workflows. So around document collaboration or document review sessions where I don't need a ready to inspect, work to complete, etc. type of workflow to support the issue management. So we will provide two types of workflow status values that you can select as you continue to build out your issue type. So that's something that's coming relatively soon, just around the corner, to help support issue management within the BIM 360 platform. Perfect.
So we have some questions about the iOS apps that are available. There are multiple BIM 360 apps. Which one should they be using and why?
So I would use, we do have a BIM 360 Field app today, which supports those on classic fields. So if we're using classic fields, then I would recommend you would need to use the BIM 360 Field app. For those of you within the next generation solution, and even if that is simply just document management, we do today in iOS as well as Android have a BIM 360 iOS app, as well as a BIM 360 Docs app. We would recommend going with the unified BIM 360 app. What you're going to get with this app is all of the functionality from field management, from project management, truly a unified experience in one app. We are continuing to build that out, and the goal will be at some point to focus predominantly on that unified app for next generation solutions.
Perfect. So with regards to starting a new next-gen field project, you can import those templates. Is there any ability, or will there be the ability to import those from your existing next-gen field projects?
So that also a very, very good question. We have just around the corner a feature that's coming out, which will be the account level library of checklist templates within field management. So this will be similar to what we have today in classic field, where you have a project template when you're starting up a project. In this case, we will have an account level library of all your checklist templates. And whenever I generate a new project, I can push or pull templates into that particular project, allowing you to share sort of your IP, as well as have that version control and awareness at the account level. So this will initially be a push release, and then we will continue to update this to allow you to also pull templates into projects as we continue forward.
Perfect. So we do have a question coming here about equipment. Is that going to be something that will be added to next gen the way we see in classic?
Yes. So what we have done, just to step back, is the utilization of classic field today is quite heavily on checklists and issues around processes or workflows, such as today the QA/QC workflow, safety. So we wanted to predominantly focus initially on building out issue and checklist management, which will also support the next generation equipment as well as daily logs. So our plan is to bring in the equipment module. We're going to be rebranding that as the asset module within NextGen. And for those of you that are familiar with the acquisition that we recently took on with Assemble, we have a lot of, let's say, a great roadmap and a lot of functionality that we will be working together with the acquisition to bring out our next generation asset module.
Perfect. So how does NextGen Field Management plan to enhance reporting and address custom reports?
So we currently are focused on those out-of-the-box reports for the functionality that we have available, such as issue checklist summary, as well as those detailed reports. We are at the moment focusing on scheduled reporting. So the scheduled reporting will, of course, bring out the functionality for scheduling reports that we have available today. We do plan, of course, to continue this on and bring more out-of-the-box reports, so equivalent to what we have in classic field, as well as above and beyond and hit that customization that we're all looking for. One thing to keep in mind is as we're building out the next generation platform, we have taken years of feedback from the experiences with classic fields, as well as those other, feature modules that we're bringing out in how we are approaching the reporting or any functionality in the next generation solution. So you can definitely expect a much more enhanced experience.
Perfect. And I know we're right here at the end of our time for the webinar, so I'm going to ask one more question, and then beyond that, we can continue conversations on our forums, or we hope to see many of you guys at AU coming up this month. So last question here, Shireen. Will we be able to customize status sets in the future?
Yes. So I mentioned previously that today, or as soon as we bring out unified issues in the next couple of weeks, we will allow you to select between two status sets. Where we are heading with that is giving you the ability within limits. So we have bookend status sets like draft, open, closed, and void. Those in-progress status values you will be able to customize and then assign to an issue type.
Perfect. Thanks, Shireen, for questions. And with that in mind, do we have the screen back up here? Let's switch screens one more time. Make sure you guys have all the resources that you need. So we have our product updates that are available online. We're bringing new functionality to these products constantly, so if you can stay up to date by checking out those release notes. We do have webinars that are available as well every Wednesday if you want to figure out just how to get started, ask some questions about more of the how-tos. You can join that Ask the Expert sessions we have on Wednesdays. And as I mentioned before, AU is right around the corner, and leading up to that, we have Connect and Construct on Monday as well. So we hope to see all of you there. There are some links here available if you want to jot those down and check them out. With that, thank you guys. We're just a couple minutes over. I hope you have a great rest of your day.